Hello everybody, and welcome back to another fighting game retrospective reaction. I'm joined today by Serby, as per usual, and we're going to be checking out King of Fighters. The last retrospective that we did was on Fatal Fury, and there was a bit of a mention towards King of Fighters, so we have a somewhat basic understanding of how this goes. Plus, the last set of videos that we recorded were just us checking out all the designs for the KOF characters, KOF 15 specifically. And well, I mean, for those of you who watch it, you've probably formulated your own opinions about what we thought of them. But we literally don't know anything else about them.
To be proven wrong.
Yes. That always happens with us, right? Where we see a character, we think their design is dumb, and then they're like the greatest thing ever.
Oh yeah, constantly.
So yeah. Looking forward to being pleasantly surprised at the stories and the different character arcs and why certain characters may look the way that they do. There might be like a lore reason that we unfortunately did not know when we did that, the blind reactions to their designs.
I wouldn't be very blind if I knew.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess a lot of people don't read the title on that one. It's fine. Or listen to the intro.
Call them out.
So, anyways, before we get into this, if you guys haven't already, please go and support Thorgi. The retrospectives that we checked out from him so far have been amazing, and it's been just so much fun 100%. Learning about fighting games, thanks to Thorgi. So yeah, I wouldn't be as passionate about these games if it wasn't for him, so definitely go and support him. Link to that is at the very top of the description, like always.
Games I never thought I would be. Genuinely.
And if you're new here, we usually split these up into multiple parts. Specifically for this one, Thorgi has multiple 2-hour-long videos. We're gonna be on this for a while.
Part one.
Yeah. So I think specifically the way we're gonna do this is that I'll name this episode part 1.1, and then the next one will be point 2 and point 3 and so on and so forth. And then once we get to the next one, I'll switch to part 2. So we'll see how that goes.
You know what? This is the final version.
Yeah, it's
the Attack on Titan movie.
The final season, final part. Yeah, whatever that was. Jeez.
Over the last year, we've covered a lot of games here on Fighting Game Retrospective. Some early icons, some cult classics, but it's time for us to go big. This month, King of Fighters 15 has been released, and I have seen more hype surrounding that game than any other KOF in my life. I have seen people who have never even touched an SNK game gain excited for this title. So today...
As I said... Nice. Oh my, nice pause screen. As I said when we were doing the character design ranking videos, KOF 15 was a game that I had bought just because I thought it looked cool, and this was even before we got into Guilty Gear Strive, which was the first fighting game I ever played, so I'm really excited to learn more about this series, and why there's so many fans of it around the world. Like, how different is it from the story of Fatal Fury? We had learned about Verse and the Orochi stuff, but we didn't really get any context behind it.
We're going to go back through the long history of this legendary franchise. A series that has given us memorable heroes, stylish villains, and some of the most broken boss fights ever. A game that has survived bankruptcy, lawsuits, and the dreaded pachinko-fication. A game that...
No. That being said...
that's going to be recurring for all the
fighting games, yeah.
Why are fighting games doomed to the pachinko machines?
I actually did a reaction to a video talking about that specifically, of like why fighting games need to change and why they're so niche. And it's certainly because when you buy a fighting game, there is no actual tutorial on how to play the game. They teach you how to press buttons and like cool combos that you can do. But how do you actually play the game? That's a topic of discussion, and we need ways to get new players to just buy the game and be able to play it without having to like ask a friend or go on YouTube and watch a bunch of guys, because that requires a lot more motivation to get into it, right? How do we make them more accessible?
It's a very high investment to get into a fighting game.
Just the motion inputs alone are daunting to people, and you don't get any reward really from like doing them correctly or doing specific mechanics correctly. You're just like, oh, okay, I could do this now, but like, how do I use it, right?
I feel like another challenge for someone like me, right, who struggles to get into fighting games a little bit, is like even if you spend a whole lot of time and get into like learning a character or something, there's not a whole lot of output for it, right? You can play online against other people or against friends, but it's not quite as rewarding as most other multiplayer games in that aspect. Because the skill difference is just going to be so vast when you're like starting that it's really hard to, I guess, enjoy that.
There needs to be some sort of reward system, something that tracks your progress for leveling up in real life. You know, like what was talked about in that video was certain mission objectives that you had in an actual like PvP match where it didn't really depend on you winning the match. But if you could do this certain move with this certain motion, then you'd get rewarded with something. And then that would switch the focus of pressing buttons to win into intentionally pressing buttons to do a certain move and learn why that move worked, right?
That makes sense, yeah.
So, that's one step, I think, in the right direction. But we'll have to see how fighting games go in the future. And I hope Marvel Dokkan is that game for you. I sincerely do. Because fighting games are awesome, but I understand that they're hard to get into.
I love fighting games in concept. I just struggle to play them.
We'll get there someday, I'm sure. Marvel Rivals changed you, then anything is possible.
True.
The developer would probably have been banished to the vault ages ago, but instead has continued to return again and again with brand new characters and brand new adventures.
Oh, this is something I was going to mention, but then I got sidetracked about the whole fighting game thing. I heard from the comments that apparently KOF 13 was the game that bankrupted the company because that game looked so goddamn good and they invested so much into the visuals that they didn't make any profit from it, I think. Or not enough. But KOF 13 looks amazing. But yeah, well, maybe we'll do a video on that, but you guys know how long the KOF 15 character design ranking went. That was like 12 hours of recording ultimately, so...
It was a lot, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is...
Interesting, so that was his 14 design.
It all began in 94.
Kyo Kusanagi.
95. Pieces were replaced in 96.
Oh yeah, that was Leona. Oh my god! Benimaru looks like a Giga Chat, man! Whoa!
Here we go. KOF is here again. Some sounds, 1998.
Hey, K-Dash. And then oh god, that was Omega Rugal, yeah. Ooh. His design in the Pixar art looks way better than his 15 design, at least in our opinion. But it might change. Hell yeah.
Yes, folks, welcome to the King of Fighters.
And I actually have no idea the timeline for these games, but like, which came first? Like the concept of the Smash invitations versus like the King of Fighters, like tournament invitations? Because they're very similar looking. I don't know. I guess just being invited to a tournament.
That I don't know. I presume Smash came later though, because Smash kind of took concepts from all the other games out at the time and sort of worked on them.
That's what I would guess too.
To improve them for like casual audiences. But yeah. And all the things that we were talking about how like these characters might have been inspired by One Piece. Well, they kind of were invented before that actually happened. So that might be a bit of a crisscross. You never know.
It's always funny when you look back at like the timeline of things, be like, which ones actually came first?
Yeah, right.
Were things made like by coincidence and they both kind of ended up looking the same? Were things inspired by things or the other way around? And you're like, oh, I see.
I find it fascinating to discover that particular timeline, which is why I find these videos fascinating because I get to learn about a time that that things used to be very different and how it led to all the things that we enjoy now.
I agree.
Retrospective. Now, I know this might seem like a huge undertaking. As I said, King of Fighters 15 just came out. 15 titles? I've talked for an hour on this show about series that just had 3 games. How am I going to cover 15? But I think I can do it. The titles do flow nicely into each other, so we can probably streamline all of this. 15 titles shouldn't be that much to... Oh. Right. Also need to cover the re-releases. Well, I mean, they're re-releases. They're not going to take up that much time. And right, there was also an entire line of handheld games.
Yep, classic fighting games.
And then all of the spin-offs. And oh God, I forgot about the Maximum Impact line. And we have to cover the Maximum Impact line.
Jesus!
Oh. Yeah, okay.
Terry never disappoints, man. I love Terry so much. Jesus!
Jesus!
I believe we saw that clip in an earlier retrospective that we checked out too. It was probably Fatal Fury, but yeah. Man.
Change of plans.
Still funny.
Welcome to part 1 of our King of Fighters retrospective.
Ooh.
Yes, this is going to be a 4-part series covering the entire history of this franchise, which is easily the biggest thing we have ever done on this channel. So if you like what you see here today and you want to help support us, then please hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. It really does help us out.
Honestly, Thorgi, these retrospectives that you make are probably better than a lot of movie trilogies that exist out there, so I'm just happy to be watching.
And as much work as this video is, it was worth it. King of Fighters is an incredible series that needs more attention, so hopefully by the time all this is done, it can help fuel the excitement behind KOF, explain why it has so many diehard players, and hopefully bring in a few new fans. But we've got a long journey ahead of us here today, so let's start at the beginning. The late 80s was a booming time for the arcade industry, as anyone who could make a pixel stick figure walk across a screen was building a game around it. And SNK was one of the most experimental companies at the time.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's how it seemed like, especially with Fatal Fury being the 3-lane system. Like, I had never seen that before. It was such a weird concept that kind of made sense in a way, but yeah, I understand why they gave it up, because it was just a little clunky.
Arcade library was massive. You want platformers? We got platformers. You want run and guns? We got run and guns. You want sports games? We got sports games. And of course, in 1991, they hopped on the fledgling fighting game craze with Fatal Fury. Now, if you want to know more about the history and development of that game, then check out our Fatal Fury retrospective. There's a card popping up for it right there. And just a heads up, some of the stuff in that video will be coming up in here, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The success of Fatal Fury led to SNK's second fighting game, Art of Fighting, which was released the next year in 1992. Now, Art of Fighting was very unique, not just for mechanical reasons, being the first fighting game to ever feature super moves, but also for the story. Because Art of Fighting was actually a prequel to Fatal Fury. Having a new fighting game with completely different characters be a prequel to a complete...
I feel like we must have known that. I forgot.
I don't know if it was specifically mentioned. We knew that Art of Fighting was also another series that SNK worked on, and that there were like... Ryo Sakazaki here showed up as a secret boss in one of the Fatal Fury games, but... Yeah. I mean, we did learn some interesting facts about these characters when we were reading the interviews for KOF 15. About about how there's a barbecue too now over the dojo. But that's really cool that this was like the first fighting game ever to have super moves. That's awesome.
Separate game is something so wild that to this day I can't think of another example of it, but that was what SNK was all about in those days. No idea was too out there for them, especially not for Takashi Nishiyama, the creator of both Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting, as well as being co-creator of another little title that you might have heard of called Street Fighter.
Yep.
And when Takashi Nishiyama helped to create the first Street Fighter for Capcom.
Is this guy basically just like the godfather of fighting games at this point? Like,
I mean, it feels like it.
He wanted to give that game a big, rich story and even wrote out extensive histories for every character. none of which made it into the game because Street Fighter was made in 1987 and there was no way
He
that
had a
they could
vision.
put all that information into
It was
a
a little
fighting
too early
game.
on it, though.
But when he worked on Fatal Fury, he brought that same mentality to the game, and he and the developers at SNK wrote out a whole backstory for this series that was put out as promotional material in the lead up to the game's release. It was a game about Terry Bogard, a man whose father, Jeff Bogard, was killed by Geese Howard, a mob boss who had taken over his home of Southtown, and now Terry had returned to fight in Geese's tournament so he could get close enough to him to take his revenge. So, when Art of Fighting was released, they decided to expand upon the lore of this world by having the game also be set in Southtown, but over a decade before in the 1970s. It focused on Ryo Sakazaki and his friend Robert Garcia, two students of the Kyokugen Ryu Karate Dojo. Ryo's younger sister Yuri is kidnapped by the mob enforcer Mr. Big. At the end of the game, Ryo is forced to face down Mr. Big's number.
Mr. Big. That just makes you think of Zootopia now. It's just a little guy. No.
Number one hitman, a masked man named Mr. Karate, only to learn that Mr. Karate was actually...
I love SNK so much with just their naming sets for things. It's like Southtown.
Yes.
Oh, we need to make a sequel to Southtown. Let's call it Southtown 2.
his father Takuma. Takuma reveals that long ago the true villain running things in this city had threatened his family, and working for that villain was the only way to keep Ryo and Yuri safe. That true villain's name?
Geese?
Geese Howard.
Hey.
Yes, Art of Fighting was the story of the rise of Geese Howard, adding bits to the lore like
That's
having
cool.
Geese try to convince Takuma to kill Jeff Bogard for him. Now, the reason why I went on that trip down two completely different games is because they formed the foundation of King of Fighters. SNK now had two different games set in the same world, so it was only a matter of time until they crossed over. And at SNK, they were tossing out ideas left and right. Originally, they wanted to make a side-scrolling beat-em-up named Downtown Team Battle, but they eventually changed that name to Survivor. And then eventually, they changed that name again to Nothing because the idea was canceled. But while they were brainstorming ideas for this new game, they decided to test the waters for this crossover. So in 1993, they included Ryo as a secret boss at the end of Fatal Fury Special. This was referred to as a dream match, meaning it wasn't canon, but it was met with a very positive response from the fans. This was the very first...
The lore doesn't have to make sense specifically for the situation to happen. It's cool. It's fun.
Yeah.
Please do more.
Fighting game crossover, and fans went wild for it. At which point SNK said, wait a second, we're trying to figure out how to cross over two fighting games? Why not do a fighting game? Seems kind of obvious when you put it like that, doesn't it? You got two fighting games set in the same location, and Fatal Fury even has an established tournament within its game as part of its story. So let's make a fighting game, and then we just take the name of the tournament from Fatal Fury and make it the name of the entire game. The name of that tournament?
King of Fighters.
King of Fighters.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop there. This was the video game industry in the early 90s. This was the Wild West. Everyone was hopped up on quarters and digital sugar. This was the era of, oh, you like that? Cool. Let's do way more of it. So over at SNK, after...
I've seen some comments about you guys telling us about the arcade era of fighting games and how it was such a different beast, where it genuinely felt like going to one arcade, you'd see people doing one type of like crazy technique, and then you went to a different arcade, and then people will be doing something completely different. And like they were using their own special techniques in order to get certain things, because you didn't have guides. You couldn't just search up on Dustloop what the most optimized combo of your character was. So people were just figuring different things out that worked for them. That sounds really like you're traveling around the world looking at different dojos with different styles. That sounds awesome.
Seeing the positive response to Ryo and Fatal Fury Special, they said, wait, you like the idea of a crossover? Well, what if instead of crossing over two games, we crossed over all the games? So they decided this new game would be comprised of three-person teams, all themed around different games from within the SNK library. And this idea went over like gangbusters.
I feel like you just can't go wrong with big crossovers. It's fun.
Characters that people love all in the same game together. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, look at Smash.
Right?
People who play Smash might not even be interested in fighting games. They just love the character. They want to play them. So yeah. I also believe that tag fighters as a whole came to be because of King of Fighters. King of Fighters introducing like 3-person teams in a fighting game, which then led to the idea of what if the other people came in to help? Because I believe in older King of Fighter games, there were certain moments, well, for the first part, your 2 teammates would be standing in the background of the stage that you were fighting on, and they'd be actively cheering you on. But there would be moments where they could like hop in to assist you with something. It wasn't like a call or anything, but it just happened during certain conditions. But then that gave the idea of tag fighters, which is really cool. It's awesome that things like Marvel vs. Capcom might not have existed if King of Fighters didn't do this first.
Nishiyama and the game's director Toyohisa Tanabe pitched the idea to their team. Everyone was on board, except they totally weren't, and they all thought they were crazy. Yasuyuki Oda, the current head of SNK's fighting game division, joined the company right when they were starting to pitch ideas for this crossover project, and according to a Polygon interview with Oda in 2021, he said that when they initially heard the pitch for this game, nobody thought this game was going to sell. This is a game that would go on to be one of the biggest fighting game franchises in the world, and yet when Nishiyama came to them and pitched this idea, the entire SNK studio just looked at him like,
"This is a load of barnacles."
I heard that!
The biggest concern from
You know, fair enough. I see the project itself is very ambitious, and at the time, there wasn't anything to compare it to. So while it's common sense for us now, they didn't have any of this. They were kind of the first ones there. Yeah, I get it. Makes sense.
True.
the developers was just the size of it. They wanted this game to have 24 characters. Something that was insane for the early 90s.
For the
even
storage,
today,
too.
that's asking a lot. But at least games today can store 24 characters. Oda's first thought when he heard this was, how the hell is this going to even function? SNK's arcade system, the Neo Geo, could not handle 24 characters, each with their own unique moves. To put that number into perspective, Street Fighter II, the biggest fighting game on the market at the time, launched with 8 characters. And after multiple updates over the course of several years, every single one adding one new character on top of another, Street Fighter II brought its roster size up to a whopping 16. After multiple updates, Street Fighter II still had a roster that was only 2/3 of what this game was going to launch with. And if the massive technological hurdle wasn't enough, Tanabe and other higher-ups at SNK kept making crazy requests. Things like telling them to reuse sprites from Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting to save time, which was a smart idea. Then telling them, oh, never mind, that's a dumb idea, scrap that, make brand new sprites.
Okay.
Or maybe the craziest thing I have ever heard of while making this show. You know how most fighting games at the time had bonus stages?
Yeah.
Things like breaking bricks or beating up a car. Well, they wanted King of Fighters to also have a bonus stage. So in It's All About magazine from December of 1994, the game's 2 directors, Tanabe and Masanori Kuwasashi, said they asked some unnamed planner to come up with 100 bonus stages. They said that even as they gave this planner that instruction, they thought it would be impossible to do. They figured that if they told them to make 100 bonus stages, then they would come back with probably only like 10, and from that 10, at least one of them would be a good idea. But they did it. That planner actually came back with 100 different ideas for bonus stages.
Holy balls.
At which point, Tanabe and Kuwasashi told that planner, actually, we thought it over. Yeah, nah, let's not have a bonus stage. There's
Bro, I'm about to crash out. This is my villain arc. This is the beginning.
This is how Zero becomes the maker.
How topical of you. Well, man, we really had ambitious ideas at SNK, didn't we? We were really pushing the limit of technology back then. Like, even nowadays, looking at the entire roster of KOF 15 was just staggering. It was, there were so many characters. I guess that's just a mark of King of Fighters. The biggest rosters out there.
It made me delirious by the end.
Nobody wants those anymore. And then proceeded to throw out all 100 ideas. God Damn, I don't know who that unnamed planner was, but they must have nerves of steel, because if you told me, yeah, we're going to need you to come up with 100 ideas by Monday. Then Monday rolls around and I wasted my entire weekend on this thing just so you could tell me you decided to scrap the whole project when I wasn't looking, I would burn that building down like Milton from Office Space.
I set the building on fire.
But despite...
Okay, I think it would be okay if it came with a bonus, right? If there wasn't any extra pay for all that work, then we might have an issue.
Or heck, maybe even because of the bizarre chaos engine that was SNK at the time, the team was able to pull together. According to Oda, they really gave it their all and burned the midnight oil until it was all done. Which is just a really nice way of saying they crunched and crunched and crunched.
I was gonna say,
yeah,
video game as an industry is kind of the worst out of everyone when it comes to like crunch and overwork.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what a Japanese studio at that time, how that was.
Of that time, especially, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've heard stories
I mean,
of...
it's still an issue everywhere in video games.
Anime too. But I've heard stories of like Final Fantasy XIV with its failed launch, and then Yoshi P trying to fix things and everybody kind of sleeping underneath their desks in order to crunch and get a new game going to revive FF14, which it did succeed at doing so, but goddamn, that's a lot of work.
The studio I worked at for a few months, I was just helping with a port, so I wasn't doing a whole lot of like the crazy development part of it.
Yeah.
But their studio as a whole had futons that they could pull out if need be.
Bruh. In case you need to pass out, you can go over here.
And that was just like a small studio with like 20-something people.
Oh boy.
In that Polygon interview that before Japan made laws against it, they would often just spend all night at the office grinding away at these games in order to get them made as quickly as possible. Which isn't exactly a healthy work environment and morally is not great. In the end, the game was able to get made, and in 1994, the King of Fighters was born.
Is he saying words?
I don't know. Something is happening though.
Okay.
King of Fighters 94 was released in August of 1994. It's going to be a while before I actually have to start telling everyone the dates, isn't it? The game allowed you to choose from 8 different teams, each one consisting of 3 fighters. Once the fight began, you would choose the order that you wanted the character to go out in. Whoever won would get to stick around for the next match, and they'd gain back a chunk of their life. Now, every King of Fighters would change their formula around. It would update mechanics, it would change the gameplay to keep each installment feeling unique. But this format of having 3 characters, the winner moving on to fight the next character and gaining back some life, would remain the one core defining element of this series.
Definitely doesn't look like Terry's monkey. No, that's a baboon.
No.
As far as the other unique gameplay elements, like most SNK games, this was your classic 4-button setup. Light punch, strong punch, light kick, strong kick. And you could hit the 2 light buttons together to do a sidestep to dodge attacks. Now, as I mentioned, this game was meant to originally be a crossover between Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting, so when it came to the super moves, or desperation moves as they were called in these games, they tried to merge the 2 games together. Like in Fatal Fury, you could do a desperation move when your life points were low enough, but from Art of Fighting, they took the special meter, which could be charged up, and when that meter was full, you could also do your desperation move. But I'm going to give everyone a tip. Don't do that unless you absolutely have to, because in addition to giving you access to an instant super, as long as your super meter is full, your attacks do extra damage. How much damage? A lot. Unless you absolutely needed a super to hit and you were confident that you could combo into it before your meter expired, you would have way better luck in this game just powering up and throwing out some basic kicks and punches. Now, there was one other mechanic worth mentioning.
I see. Gotcha.
You notice how your other two teammates are staying in the background? It's a really great way of showing off all the fires at once, and the animators really did a good job of giving them life. You'd see them cheering you on whenever you landed at a hit, or groaning whenever you lost, or sitting down when they've been knocked out. But they aren't just there for appearance.
Smash must have taken a lot of inspiration from King of Fighters, because I've seen their Smash stages that do that too.
Yeah, that is true. The only one I can think of is like Three Houses, where it has the Three Houses characters in the background cheering on. But yeah,
the Persona one does too. And they did that for a bunch of ones where they wanted to show the other characters even if they weren't playable, I think.
But the cool thing is here that they are playable.
Serve a mechanical purpose. If you find yourself in a throw, if you're dizzy, or if you're in some kind of emergency situation, and you're
was that a taunt? We got taunting in the game, or is that a part of his move?
Teammates are in frame at the moment, then you can hit.
Oh, I see the move that you're talking about from the other guy, Joy. Yeah, he just starts to vibrate.
I was talking about.
That's another weird move, I guess.
The other one.
3 buttons, and if you do, one of your conscious teammates can jump in to do an assist attack.
Ah, there you go.
Fun fact, I did not know that was a thing until I was recording footage for this video, and I accidentally hit too many buttons at just the right time, and seeing my partner jump in and kick my opponent in the face nearly made me drop my controller. So that's how it's played, but how does it actually feel to pick the game up? Well, it's hard to say because you have to compare it to other titles out there at the time, and in 1994, games were a lot stiffer. But I'll say, even compared to some of the other fighters at the time, this still feels a bit rigid to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, moves can link into each other, but mostly just light punches and light kicks over and over again. Although, I was constantly tempted to just throw out heavies simply because they did far more damage than the light, which I know is a big no-duh, but it's even more than you'd expect. Heck, against the bosses, the light attacks do almost nothing. In fact, speaking of damage, the desperation moves are way too strong. Just look at this.
Go to hell! Go to hell!
That is from one move, and the match is almost done. What the heck?
That's insane. That is actually a move that we saw during Heidern's trailer for KOF 15, but it did like a smidgen of the health bar. I think that move basically powered him up, so his other moves did like more damage. But man, that did more than half of the other player's health. That's kind of insane.
Yeah.
That being said, I am glad that they've kept a lot of the legacy moves from older games for the fans out there.
Hell. And this game has a lot of wonky hitboxes. It feels like if both players swing their attacks at the same time, then it's just a rock, paper, scissors game to see who actually hits. With some clear hits just going straight through the opponent. Or you'll find yourself getting hit from attacks that didn't even feel like they were close to you. Like an opponent can hit you with their high anti-air attack while you're doing a leg sweep. And boy was I shocked to learn there are attacks in this game that are unsafe on hit. You connect with the attack, and they still get to punish you for it. Yeah,
that makes no sense. What? Hey, you guessed right. Well, too bad. It's my turn now. What? Who designed this? Come on, guys. SNK.
This game is early 90s arcade jank. But I will give it some positives. As busted as it is quicker than many other games that were out there at the time, and that does make the combat kind of flow together in a way that can feel pretty nice at times. And it's a very grounded footsie-based game with a big emphasis on fundamentals over style, which isn't for everyone, but does make this a decent game for teaching players about fighting practically. Hell, I'll admit I have a big problem with being too aggressive in my gameplay and jumping way too much, and this game taught me to stop doing that. Charging in and sending out your projectiles and jumping all over the screen, stuff like that isn't going to work in this game because f*** this computer! Okay, for all of our younger fans out there, let me give you a history lesson. In the early 90s, arcade games were not made to be your friends. They were made to take your quarters. And fighting games were notorious for being difficult because the game could just read your
Although, yeah, that's exactly the same move the King has as a special in KOF 15. Yeah, we've kept everything. That's cool.
your inputs and know instantly how to counter them. And holy crap, is this game guilty of that. Do not jump at your opponent. They will anti-air you. Do not shoot a projectile. They will jump over it. If you stand too close to your opponent, they will do a 0-frame grab on you that stops almost any attack and does major damage. Heck, I won't lie, if I played through this game and the final team I went up against had Benimaru on it, one of the quickest characters in the game, I would be tempted to just quit and start all over again because the moment I hit a button, he could just get his attack out first. If you want to play against your friends, I think this game is just fine for that. A good way to relive 90s arcade classics. But if you're playing the arcade ladder, this game's AI is rough and it takes no prisoners. Especially... Will...
Oh boy. Oh boy. Omega Rugal, we had learned, was a beloved character because apparently he was a fighting game super boss that is, if not the hardest fighting game super boss to defeat in all of fighting games. And also has the gimmick of
Not
obviously.
my fault he dresses like a weirdo.
It's funny because now that people told me about it, I could see it. That he's dressing quite similar to like part 3 Dio, and he wears basically the same thing. It's like the skin tight, like leather stuff, right? Although here it looks like he's wearing a nice suit.
But I imagine most characters in JoJo's dress like a weirdo. That's kind of my opinion of that series.
Oh my god, Survey. That is true. That is true.
That's JoJo's whole thing. Don't survey me. Bizarre is in the name.
They do have a strange, bizarre fashion sense for sure. We can all agree on that.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Some of the stuff there is so weird that it's actually cool.
Now let's talk about how the game looks. SNK would go on to be known for creating very impressive sprites with a lot of detail in between every single frame of animation. But as I said, this was a lot of content to cram into a single game, being made in a very
that screen. That's crazy.
Short amount of time. So while I think the sprites in that first game are nothing to write home about, it is pretty impressive considering what they had to work with. And one thing that I really have to give this game, and something that to me would go on to be a continuous high point in this series, were the stages. I almost never hear people talk
to me 100%.
The background and almost everything in the background is moving. Like if there are characters there, they're all moving. That's awesome.
It's very animated.
About how good the King of Fire stages are, but I feel like it's one of the things this series keeps knocking out of the park game after game. They're always so varied, so full of life. You really feel the excitement and the hype surrounding this tournament from the crowds cheering you on in the background. And they are loaded with so many cameos. The whole point of a crossover is to feel like these worlds are being brought together. And when you see not just the Fatal Fury characters fighting, but their whole stage is loaded with guest characters from that series, it makes you feel like these games exist together. I mean, that might not mean a lot to someone new to this franchise, but if you're a big SNK nerd, then these stages will have you constantly stopping and pointing out,
oh yeah, like you could see Duck.
Oh hey,
King Duck
it's
in the
Duck
back
King,
there.
you guys.
Yeah, Duck King.
Look, it's Duck King, everyone.
Yeah.
Duck King.
Duck King.
So we got the gameplay, we got the graphics. Let's actually crack open this roster and look at the characters who kicked this whole thing off. Now, as I said, even though the King of Fires had been held before in the Fatal Fury games, this year the tournament took on a unique new rule where everyone would have to fight on teams of 3, so these 24 characters were divided into 8 teams. First off was Team Fatal Fury. I already brought up Terry Bogard, the legendary Hungry Wolf. He's a down-to-earth guy who likes hot dogs and hamburgers, and he's constantly playing basketball with the kids in Southtown to be a good role model to them. And of course, he can summon out the power of the earth to cause explosions and has sworn revenge against a crime boss named after a waterfowl. Then there's Andy Bogard, Terry's brother, who is far more strict and professional than his big bro, and he spent the last decade training in the art of ninjutsu. And lastly, Joe Higashi. He's a skilled fighter who's won multiple Muay Thai championships, but he's not exactly as bright as his teammates, and he's got terrible luck finding dates, and those two things combined have made him the constant source of comedic relief on Team Fatal Fury. Next up, the other half of this crossover coin, the whole reason SNK wanted to make this game to begin with, Team Art of Fighting. There's Ryo, the Invincible Dragon, the young master of Kyokugen-ryu Karate, who is maybe a bit too dedicated to his training, so much so they can come off as aloof at times. Then there's Ryo's friend and the secondary protagonist of the Art of Fighting games, Robert Garcia, the Raging Tiger.
He looks
Son
very
of a
different
wealthy
now.
Italian businessman, he came to America to train under Ryo's father and found himself to be a natural
slacks.
martial arts master.
Yeah.
He's often portrayed as being more jokey and passionate than Ryo, which along with his crush on Ryo's sister Yuri are often used as a source of comedy. And lastly, there's Ryo's father Takuma, who is your typical strict sensei. He's always pushing his students hard and making them train every chance that they get. Now, this is an important thing that we have to bring up. Some of you might be wondering, hey wait, you said Art of Fighting was set over a decade before Fatal Fury. Why did the Art of Fighting characters look exactly the same? Yeah, this is something that you need to understand before you try and fit this game into the Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting canon. This game does not fit into the Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting canon.
Yeah.
Yes, Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting exist in its own timeline, and King of Fighters is in a completely different timeline. So, does that mean that the events of Art of Fighting and Fatal Fury didn't happen in this world? No. And yes. And no. Sort of. Some events of the Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting games did happen in the King of Fighters universe.
It's a mix of both, yeah.
Not necessarily in the same way, and other events didn't happen at all. Basically, think of it like this. You know how when you watch a movie based on a comic book, some of the stuff in that comic book movie did happen in the comics, but not in the same way?
Yeah,
Same thing here.
Okay.
Fatal Fury is Terry Bogard
Makes
in the
sense.
comics, King of Fighters is Terry Bogard in the movies. And in case you're wondering what events did...
Thorgi.
Yes, it's specifically targeted toward us, too.
overlap exactly? Well, there's never been a full-blown timeline written out, but most fans believe the events of Art of Fighting 1 still happened, just in the modern day. But then after that, whether or not the events of Art of Fighting 2 and 3 happened is kind of up in the air. And if they did happen, they certainly didn't happen in the same way, considering Geese Howard's role in Art of Fighting 2 and certain character developments that happened in Art of Fighting 3. And as for Fatal Fury, again, no official timeline, but most fans believe that the events of Fatal Fury 1 through 3 all happened, so Terry beat Geese in an earlier King of Fighters tournament, knocked him off his tower to his supposed death, then fought Geese's brother Krauser, then Geese returned thanks to the power of some Mystic Scrolls. However, the events of the real bout games where Terry beat Geese and he fell to his death for real, that didn't happen in the King of Fighters universe. Geese Howard is still seen alive and kicking in the King of Fire games long after his death in the Fatal Fury timeline.
Still here in 15.
So, there you have it. The Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting crossover that SNK always wanted to make. It was a long road to bring this about, but it was finally here. Meaning that now we can move on to the next year when SNK would go on to develop... Wait a second! We've still got 18 more characters to cover. Why the hell did I just spend 3 minutes talking about continuity? We need to keep this show moving. Next up, Team Psycho Soldiers. The two main characters on this team were Athena Asamiya and Sai Kinzo, both of whom came from the action game Psycho Soldiers, released in 1986. This game was a sequel.
That's right. You guys did tell us in the comments for the character ranking design video. Athena came from her own game. Yeah. It was so cute.
Sequel to their earlier arcade hit, Athena, which was all about a goddess who battled creatures of darkness thousands of years ago. But in Psycho Soldiers, Athena Asamiya is a young girl who wanted to become a pop star in modern-day Japan, but when those same ancient creatures started to return, she and her friend Kinzo had to use their psychic powers to save their hometown.
Oh my god. This is so cute, but it's also kind of cursed because this is the origin of Psychobot! Psychobot! Oh no. Oh god.
Now, just like Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting's cast, these two saw some pretty big changes. They were both still psychics, but now Athena wasn't a pop star in training, she was actually already a famous idol. And Kinzo is not only her childhood friend, but he's also her #1 groupie, constantly cheering her on, as well as eternally attempting to ask her out and failing. You may have figured it out by now, but SNK really has a thing for that running gag. But that wouldn't be Kinzo's only recurring joke. SNK really loves poking fun at this guy, either from him attempting to look cool and failing, or his obsession with eating meat buns. Now, as for the third member of their team, this was an entirely new character, Shin Ginsai, and boy is one of these things not like the others. Yeah, the old drunk slob doesn't exactly fit in next to the two perky high school kids.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What? But he's actually Athena and Kinzo's master, helping to train them with their psychic abilities. And on his own, Chin is a master of the Drunken Fist, and if you're a big Chinese martial arts cinephile, then you might recognize his design. He was based off of the depiction of So Chan in the 1978 Drunken Master film, and the inspirations from that movie didn't stop there. Kinzo received a drastic redesign for this game, with his inspiration being taken from Jackie Chan's character in the same film. Which could possibly be why Kinzo became more comedic, since Jackie Chan's films were often praised for being more lighthearted and funny than other martial arts films at the time. And Athena herself received her own.
Yeah, I had never seen any of those movies, honestly. I wasn't really big into those kind of like, those Chinese like fighting movies, but yeah, those seem really cool, really fun, and obviously makes sense why they would inspire fighting games at the time, you know?
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of fighting game developers who created them initially were inspired by those movies.
I would believe that, yeah.
And many have actually theorized that based off of Chin and Kinzo's designs, that she might have been inspired by Pan Pan Yoong's character in the Drunken Master sequel, Story of the Drunken Master, but I don't know. I can kind of see it, but it's a bit of a stretch for me. Either way, the design wouldn't stick, as Athena would go on to be one of the most redesigned characters in fighting game history, gaining a completely different look in almost every single game. Next up, Team Ikari Warriors, made up of Ralph Jones, Clark Still, and Hydern, all from the Ikari Warrior games, which was a series of run-and-gun and beat-em-up games from the 80s, where you play as soldiers storming into enemy bases and blowing up and punching everything in your way. Now, in the first game, Ralph and Clark were pretty much just copy.
That's really cool that we brought in like even characters outside of fighting games underneath the SNK umbrella, which is probably why
I always think it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's part of what I thought Smash was always so fun, seeing their announcements and their character trailers.
Yeah.
Just seeing non-fighting game characters adapted into a fighting game is just really fun to me. I don't know why.
How do they get interpreted? Like, what kind of cool stuff have you made for this fighting game character for it to still, like, harken to the original while also fitting within the fighting game? Yeah, the thought process there is just fascinating.
Of each other, both in personality and their moves. The only real difference between the two of them were their desperation attacks, with Ralph's being a string of exploding punches, and Clark tossing the opponent into the air for a triple backbreaker. And while that might not seem like a huge difference, it was from these supers that their individual playstyles would slowly evolve, with Clark being a more dedicated grappler and Ralph being more of a big punch man. Also, as the games would go on, their personalities would become more distinct, with Clark becoming the serious straight man of the group and Ralph being more of the big man on campus cocky jock character. Then there was their boss Hydern, a mysterious eye patch man and expert tactician who likes to fight with extremely deadly jabs and slashes. In later games, Hydern would go on to almost be a Nick Fury figure for the series. A character in the shadows, constantly gathering intel and making plans against the new big enemy of the game. Next up, Team Women Fighters, which, as you can guess from the name, is comprised of some of the most popular female characters from SNK's library. There's the leader of the group, King, a Muay Thai master.
A literal title.
Damn. King looking mighty fine. Jesus. God damn.
Who originally appeared in the Art of Fighting games as a bouncer working for Mr. Big, but she was only working for the villain to help raise money for her younger brother's operation. After losing to Ryo, however, she decided to finally turn on Mr. Big, and despite her villainous origins, King is actually a very kind and compassionate person who looks after her teammates while being stern and serious when facing her opponents. Unless that opponent is Ryo, who she totally has a thing for, and Ryo, after 2 decades, still doesn't quite get it.
No.
Then there's Yuri, the younger sister of Ryo, who, after being kidnapped by Mr. Big, decided to start training under her father, and it turns out she was a natural, mastering some of the more complicated techniques of Kyoku Ginryo after only a year. She's got an energetic, upbeat attitude that has made her a big fan favorite in the series. And then, of course, there's Mai Shiranui. She's the daughter of the man who trained Andy Bogart, and during his training, she developed a massive crush on him, with her infatuation bordering on obsession. But beyond the fact that she flirts with Andy Bogart so much he could give Pepe Le Pew a run for his money, Mai also has a very playful, fun-loving attitude that has made her one of the most iconic characters in SNK's entire library.
I heard from comments that there was a particular KOF game, I forget exactly which one it was, but in the roster, they didn't have Mai, and then the game didn't sell.
And they never made that mistake again.
So in the very next game that came after that, she was front and center on the cover, and things went back to normal. Oh, I believe there was also like a hashtag no Mai, no buy going on. Something like that. There was a trend.
She has also been so excessively sexualized over the years that she's the only character to ever be banned from Smash Bros.
No!
So, yeah, that's something I had to bring up. Now, Team Women Fighters has been one of the longest running teams in this series, and I do think the idea of having an excuse to bring whatever cool female characters you can think of into this game is a great idea. But honestly, I always hated that name. It just sounds like a placeholder. Like, what do we call this team made up of women fighters? Team Women Fighters? I don't know. Just put that down. We'll think of something better later.
Come up with something a little more creative. Why don't you? Yeah. It's just Team Hot Women. Yeah. Thanks. Just on the nose. I don't know. Maybe play into like King being kind of like the leader of the group or something, and then have it be some sort of like chivalry thing. Could be cool. Whatever.
I feel like there's an infinite number of things you could do.
That isn't that. Yes.
This is where we are.
And I feel like even SNK doesn't really like that name. In the King of Fighters anime, they didn't even refer to themselves as Team Women Fighters. Instead, they called themselves Team Queen. Luckily, in King of Fighters 15, they finally did change that name to something better, but it's going to be a long time before we get to that game. Now, for the final pre-existing character from Fatal Fury, Kim Kap-won created his own team called Team Korean Justice. Kim Kap-won was a Taekwondo master who had an over-the-top dedication to justice and believed that martial arts was the way to spread justice throughout the world. One day, he finds out that a violent criminal, Chang Koi-han, has escaped from prison. So he tracks him down and easily beats him and returns him to his cell. Later, when walking home, Kim was attacked by a serial killer, Choi Boonj, who Kim easily dispatched. But it was then that he got a brilliant idea, and by brilliant, I mean insane. He would take Chang and Choi under his wing and force them to undergo his rigorous training, all in the effort to reform them through the power of Taekwondo.
I like him. I think he's an idiot, but I like him.
From the outside, he looks very generic, but when you read his interview, he has so much personality behind that. And yeah, he really is. He's almost that like himbo guy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
A himbo of justice, if you will.
Perfect.
And apparently, like, I think during when we were reading his interview, I thought he was referring to his sons. No, he was actually referring to these two. That they were still back in the dojo training to become like, you know, warriors of justice and whatnot. That's cool. Like, he really sticks to his guns, and hey, he believes in this, and he's proven himself.
I will make a good guy out of you.
Yeah. I'll make a good man out of you. Just change the Mulan song.
History of this series, this has been a recurring theme with a running gag being that Chang and Choi keep trying to escape, only for Kim to stop them and then put them through his hellish training regimen all over again. As for how they play, Kim fights with a flurry of quick kicks, Chang is your big slow wall who hits hard, and Choi is just the worst. Yeah, I'm sure some people might not have any problems with him, but that hitbox and his crazy jumping and spitting patterns have been the bane of my existence throughout this series. Your punches will go right over him, and he will drill claw you for days. Speaking of Choi, in case you're looking at those claws and hat of his thinking,
Freddy Krueger?
Could he possibly have been inspired by Freddy Krueger? Don't worry, it's not your imagination. The reference was very much intentional. In fact, originally, Choi was going to have a striped sweater, but they changed it for fear of being sued, and prepare to hear the phrase, they changed it for fear of being sued many more times over the course of this series.
Yeah. There were some pretty blatant inspirations that people could see, especially in the older KOF games. Like Cronin's design, too, was apparently a direct reference to a character from Akira. Unfortunately, neither of us got it because neither of us have seen Akira. We probably should, considering it's an anime classic. And
we should, yeah.
Like the whole motorcycle sliding scene that's in basically everything, and it's so recognizable. Yeah, it's iconic. It's inspiring. Gotta watch it.
Yeah, SNK is famous for a lot of things, and blurring the line between homage and ripoff is one of them. Need some other examples? Let's move on to our next team, the American Sports Team.
What?
This was one of the only completely original teams with no influence from previous sources. It was Heavy D, a boxer, Lucky Glover, a basketball player, and Brian Battler, a football player. No, as for their...
You know, this team makes sense considering how much of a fan of American action movies they were, considering Terry Bogart's whole personality and look. So, yeah, I get it. They were just like, this is cool. I like this. We want to add it into the game.
Inspirations. Lucky Glover was based off of Hakeem in Bruce Lee's Game of Death, who was played by real-life basketball legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Brian Battler, while being completely original, did have uniform colors that were similar to the box art of SNK's game Football Frenzy, so it is possible that while he wasn't taken from that game, he was meant to be a subtle reference to it. And as for Heavy D, yes, his name is 100% just taken straight from the rapper Heavy D of Heavy D and the Boys. And I know you might be thinking, wow, they didn't even try on that one. The sad thing is, they actually did. In that All About KOF 94 article that I mentioned earlier, developers behind this game said that to keep from getting into legal trouble, they added the exclamation point to the end of his name, so...
Yep. Yeah, that's enough. That'll do it. Yeah.
Completely different guy, guys.
There is absolutely no relation between these two characters. It's all fictional.
So that way it would be different. Oh yeah, that's brilliant. I'm sure it fooled everyone. SNK, you had, and I cannot stress this enough.
The Thunderbolts. When Red Guardian's like, I added a Z.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. That completely changes it. Yes. Man, Red Guardian in that movie was so precious. I loved his character so much.
Yeah.
Oh.
I hadn't seen the Black Widow movie that he was in before that, so that was my first time seeing his character in the MCU.
Yeah.
Just the worst legal advice I've ever heard. Now I'll admit, I like the American Sports Team. I dig Heavy D's design, and he's got some good punches. Lucky Glover, sure, he's got one of the worst projectiles in the history of fighting games, but he's got some good mobility. And Brian Battler, you can't get me to hate a big man who flies by twirling his arms around like he's trying to turn into a helicopter. And I think they got one of the best
Look at him go!
in the entire game, and I love their stage. It is loaded with random cameos from American celebrities that are just legally distinct enough to not get them in trouble. But SNK has done everything in their power to turn these guys into a running gag, and I don't mean like the Joe Higashi Sai Kenzo, oh, aren't these characters funny running gags? No, more of the, we hate these characters and we're going to take every opportunity we can get to crap all over them kind of gags. Yeah, if there is an opportunity for SNK to make the Team American Sports Team the butt of a joke, they are going to take it. There are multiple King of Fighters and King of Fighters spin-off games where it's actually part of the story that a character joined the cast because they stole an invitation from the American Sports Team. Like, damn, there's no need for that. But SNK hates these characters and they want to make sure that you do too. Even a few years ago, when an anime was made based around King of Fighters 94, the American Sports Team was the only team not to get any dialogue as they were immediately brainwashed by the big villain and were just there to be fodder for the heroes to show off their skills.
Damn it, bro.
All right, the heroes. Yes, the final team of this game was another completely original collection of characters who would go on to be the face of this series and the protagonist of this first storyline. Team Japan, or as they would later be known, Team Hero. You've got the original protagonist of the series, Kyo Kusanagi. He's a young high school fighting superstar who comes from the Kusanagi clan, a long line of martial artists with the power to create flames. Kyo is one of those characters that you can tell was created just to be cool, but he's one of the rare examples where that actually worked. I know it's all a matter of opinion, but Kyo feels to me like one of the most likable fighting game protagonists. He's a bit cocky, he's got a swagger to him, but he's not an arrogant jerk. He's not some rebellious kid who ignores his family's responsibilities. He's easygoing, but he still takes his training seriously. All while
it's a little spark, but he like just the flamboyant. Just I don't know what you call it. It's cute.
I could definitely see him being like a version of this high school fighting kid who's cool of the times, right? Like with the whole bandana, with the jacket, and the personality to go along with it. I think it's almost reminding me of Rock Howard, but like Kyo came first before Rock Howard. It's like leading up to a Rock Howard sort of character.
Same archetype.
Yeah.
Joined life as a typical high school student. His teammates include Benimaru Nikaido, a professional Mao who trained in martial arts and has harnessed the power of electricity. Benimaru is fairly suave, or at least he likes to think that he is, and is constantly flirting or making jokes to keep the situation light. No matter what's going on, Benny always keeps his spirits high. And lastly, probably the polar opposite of Benimaru in terms of character design and personality, Goro Daimon. In contrast to his two teammates, Goro is a man of few words. He's a very stern-faced and strict athlete and a judo champion. The three of them fit pretty well as the protagonists of this game because not only do they all have three very different personalities that are great to see bouncing off of each other, but speaking in terms of gameplay, you've got your all-rounder, you've got your rushdown, and then you've got your grappler. It's a three-person team that's set up so that no matter what your playstyle is, they've got you covered. Now, looking at these three, if you're anything like me, your first question is going to be, what the heck is up with Benimaru's hair? And the simple answer is his electricity keeps his hair standing up. But if you want the actual answer, it's because Benimaru is another character that took heavy inspiration from another source, specifically Polnareff from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And if you look at these two, it's not just the hair.
The outfit too, I didn't even notice. Oh damn. Yeah, it's been a while, man. Also the earrings too. I understand why though. Polnareff, he's got the sauce. He's got the sauce of the times. I believe at this point, I'm pretty confident in saying that Polnareff inspired the most fighting game characters out there. Like Guile from Street Fighter as well, and definitely a lot of other series that we have yet to explore. I guess Polnareff's style just really resonated with people.
As someone who knows nothing about JoJo, I don't think I've ever seen this character before.
That's kind of insane, actually. Considering how many he's inspired of characters you probably end up seeing.
I have seen Guile before, and like now I've seen Benimaru. I don't know who this dude is.
Maybe someday you'll learn about the greatness of Polnareff. But until then, just know that he was there and he inspired them all.
Yeah, I know now.
It's the pants. Again, SNK, you were really playing fast and loose with that fair use clause, weren't you? But it could have been worse. Oh, it could have been so much worse. Because Kyo Kusanagi, that's a unique design. That's an original character right there. But he started life as a character named Seo Kirishima.
Pretty generic, but yeah.
And his design was just kind of from Akira.
Yeah, there you go. The SNK guys are really big fans of Akira. Understandably so.
I think a lot of people are, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you think I might be exaggerating a bit on that, take a look at the Japan stage. Parts of this set were taken directly from shots in Akira. And the game's graphic designer, Michiru Kodama, made several other references to Akira in other games he worked on at SNK. Man, can you imagine if they had gone with Kyo's initial design? Can you imagine how much trouble SNK would have gotten into if a character in this game had a design that was just taken directly from Akira?
Oh boy.
That would have been terrible for this company.
Definitely won't do it again.
Been crazy to do that, and I'm sure I am in no way foreshadowing something that will be coming up in part 2 of this series. And those weren't even going to be the only references to Akira that they initially had planned in this game, which brings me to a segment that I like to call, What Got Cut? Yes, when it comes to fighting games, there's tons of content that always gets left on the cutting room floor, but when it comes to King of Fighters, there are like 5 or 6 different versions of this game that we could have gotten. First off, the characters were originally going to have dynamic intros, win, and loss animations, but that had to be cut due to technical limitations.
Yeah.
And originally, Kyo was going to come riding in and skid to a halt on a motorcycle, just like you know who. In fact, if you look at the Team Japan stage, you can even see Kyo's bike right there. Another great example of how they use these stages to fill in information on these characters. The wildest example of that is that originally, if Kyo lost the match on the Japan stage, his girlfriend Yuki would come running in and huddle over him. But again, technical limitations made that impossible, so they decided to put her in the background right there.
Oh, you can see it! You can't even see her face, no!
She's got 2 pixels for her face.
I think Yuki is only kind of ever mentioned in like manga and whatnot. I don't think she's ever been in a game. She's not really the fighting type. But hey, you know, you're the grounded girlfriend with the protagonist fighter main character. Makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, that's not some random blurry sprite. To not be confirmed in that All About magazine interview that this was his girlfriend. Again, I mentioned that Nishiyama believed in creating huge worlds and stories behind his fighting games and would often write out giant bios around these characters, including their families and friends. So this was the first appearance of Kyo's girlfriend Yuki, who would go on to be a major plot point in a later game and would even be playable as a secret character in the portable SNK Gals Fighters.
Oh, the portable
Side note,
one, okay.
I really hope I never have to do a fighting game retrospective on SNK Gals Fighters. There actually are multiple installments of that franchise, and it gets weird.
Okay.
Oh.
This was the game. Yeah, apparently Kukri was the bad guy in this particular side story that I think is actually canonical, leading into 15 or 14, something like that. We'll get there when we get there. But yeah, this was the game that I bought because you said that you'd seen female gender bent Terry. This is going to be so geek. Brothers, Kane and I have already worked it out, the exact date that we're going to be playing this game. I won't reveal it to you just yet, but it's going to be hype.
Oh, but the cut content train keeps rolling from there. Originally, Kim Kapuan was not going to be in this game at all, and Chang and Choi were going to be joined by a third criminal as Team Fugitive, something that would be later revisited in King of Fighters 14. Another thing that was cut, or at least cut for certain versions of this game, when this game was originally released in America, it was heavily censored as they cut out the blood effects and removed several frames of animation from Mai to keep it from being so...
a little too jiggly. Yeah.
Mobile? Yeah, let's go with that. That sounds like it won't get me demonetized. These days, if you buy the game digitally, you'll get the uncensored version. But when the arcade game was first released, SNK's Japan branch said that they did program a code into the arcade machines that if you entered it, would put the censored content back in, but only the staff at SNK America knew this code, and they promised to take the code to their graves, which is just hilarious to me. I can't get over the idea that Mai was so dangerous to 1994 audiences that 2 guys at SNK would have to enter in a passcode and then turn their keys at the same time in order to unlock
launch code. Yeah.
Sir, we are at launch. Turn your keys. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Turn your keys, sir.
And speaking of Mai, one of the wildest bits of cut content.
Her face has less pixels than her boobs.
There's too many bouncing pixels. No.
Originally, Team Women Fighters didn't exist at all. Instead, this was originally going to be Team England, made up of King, Billy Kane, Geese Howard's right-hand man, and Big Bear, a wrestler who used to work for Geese as well, but had become a good guy.
Yeah.
For about 5 seconds before becoming a villain again.
Yeah.
Yes, originally, there was going to be a Team England, despite the fact that King is from France. And Big Bear is from Australia, so I guess it was more like Team Europe and former European colonies. Yeah, that doesn't really roll off the tongue as well. But as they were working on this game, Art of Fighting 2 came out, and in that game, Yuri went from being the damsel in distress to being a playable character, and the staff fell in love with her. The directors of King of Fighter just had to include her now. So they started looking for people that they could remove.
I believe she was the first fighting game character ever, actually, to introduce the butt bump move that has become so iconic among other fighting game characters. I think that's how it goes. But yeah.
And because of his size, Big Bear was giving them all kinds of technical headaches. So they decided to scrap him, but now they had a team of Yuri, King, and Billy Kane. And while the old Team England might have made little sense, this new team made no sense.
Yeah.
So they had to think of a new theme to tie them all together, and they said, hey, wait, Yuri's a woman, King's a woman, let's kick Billy off and then put that Mai character everyone seems to love on this team, and now boom, Team Women Fighters. Yeah, I said I didn't really like the name Team Women Fighters because it sounded like a last-minute idea. Turns out that's exactly what it was. But hey, we're better off for it. King, Yuri, and Mai are great, and over the course of the last 3 decades, this team has brought so many amazing characters into the spotlight.
They're not having a great time.
Meanwhile, if we had stuck with Team England, then we could have gotten SNK legends like Oh, Bijini. She could have been in there.
Hey, yeah, true.
Or Kisara Westfield from Aggressors of Dark Combat. That was a game. Or
I don't know anything about that.
This guy named Matlock. Yeah, Team Women Fighters was definitely the right call. Now, after you fight your way through the roster, your team is then summoned to an aircraft carrier, the Black Noah, where you meet the leader of this tournament, Rugal Bernstein, a man who looks like if an 80s soap opera villain put his brain into Hulk Hogan's body. He's a weapons dealer whose goal in life is to fight the strongest combatants on the planet and then turn them into bronze statues for his trophy room. And if you look closely, and by that I mean it's right in front of your face, you can see that this room is loaded with references to other fighting games, especially Street Fighter. You can see clear statues of Zangief, Akuma, and especially Guile right there dead center. Now, the original King of Fighters didn't have a lot.
That is kind of a blow. Like, we're really playing around with the copyright, ain't we? Yeah. Well, we're insinuating that our final boss is better than your final boss because we defeated all your characters, kind of thing. Well, damn, bro. It's pretty cool, though, considering his whole gimmick of, like, having the moves of other fighters, too.
Story to it, but it is worth pointing out that each team does get a little bit of unique interaction with Rugal right before the fight, many of which did add some backstory to these characters. For example...
Actually, I wonder if this whole, like, getting turned into bronze statue idea is also what inspired Smash and the story mode there, where they get turned into, like, the figurines. I just thought of that.
Smash is kind of the opposite, actually, because the idea is that it's the toys come to life more than being turned into the toys.
And then they get reverted back into toys, essentially. Yeah. Okay, I see that.
Well, if you're playing as Team Ikari Warriors, then Rugal comments that he was the one that took Hydron's eye and killed his family. And for Team Japan, when you arrive at the fight, you find Kyo's father Saishu already defeated and apparently even killed by Rugal. From there, the battle starts aboard Rugal's ship, and there's a couple of things that I enjoy about this boss fight. The stage is good. I like that despite not having any teammates, Rugal's pet panther.
Of course, he has a Black Panther in the background, just patiently waiting. He's just that guy. He's got the money, he's got the power, he's got the respect from even the
giant
animals.
Portrait of himself.
Of course, why wouldn't he?
Panther is just standing in his corner for him, and Rugal's theme is one of the best in the entire game. But none of that matters because if you know anything about King of Fighters, you've probably heard horror stories about Rugal. He is notorious for his massively damaging attacks.
Pelvic first.
I don't know about that technique, but at least it's unique.
And punishing counters. But honestly, he's not all that tough. When the boss fight begins, he mostly just stands there. Menacingly.
No.
Just relax, charge up your power meter for extra damage, get some good pokes in, and he's done. For stage 1, that is, because at this point, he throws off his shirt, the true sign that any villain has gotten serious.
Oh, he even has the suspenders that he has at 15. They really just copied this design and put it into the new game. Damn.
And he becomes way more aggressive and starts pulling out moves like a full screen charge, a projectile reflector, and of course, his most notorious attack, the Genocide Cutter, a rising leg sweep that counters everything. And when he's charged up at full power, that thing can nearly one-shot some characters.
Oh,
and it's not even a super. He can just do it whenever he wants.
Oh, Jesus.
And the crazy
That's more than half.
He was originally going to be even more broken.
I think it's hilarious because of the way the game is structured, where you have the one person fighting and then your teammates in the background. It really just looks like your team is like, oh, here's the big boss. Good luck, dude. We'll cheer you on from the sidelines.
Yeah. Hey, you know, if they go in there, they'll distract you. So it's just one-on-one. Yeah. They don't want to be a burden.
Because the original premise was since Rugal takes fighters he defeats and collects them like trophies, Rugal was going to be able to take moves from whatever characters he defeated and use them against your remaining team members. But again, it was...
That would actually be kind of cool. Like, he defeated Terry, and then he gets Terry's Buster Wolf move or something like that to use against your other characters. Oh, man.
Cut due to technical limitations. Yeah, there was no way they could program that many moves into this one character when this entire game was already pushing its technical limitations to breaking
It's
point.
already impressive
But
how
they
much they
did
put in
compromise
this.
by giving him Geese Howard's Reppuken from Fatal Fury and Wolfgang Krauser's Kaiser Wave from Fatal Fury 2, implying that Rugal was so tough he could take out 2 other SNK bosses no problem. In fact, speaking of SNK bosses, for anyone out there unfamiliar with King of Fighters and this is your first time looking into this series, there is a term you're going to need to become familiar with.
All right.
SNK Boss Syndrome.
Ooh. It actually is so iconic that it became a term. Term used to characterize most bosses of the King of Fighters series and other SNK fighting games. It is characterized by
repetitive. Change the inputs of the opponent's moves in advance. Damn.
unusually high damage and priority in their moves that can only be beaten with the use of stupid patterns most of the time. Stupid patterns. So this is literally the same thing that happens when a completely new fighting game player plays against a professional and wins against them. Because they don't know what they're doing. So the pro player doesn't know what you're gonna do, and somehow you end up winning. Yeah. Makes sense.
This is a popular term in the fighting game.
I also love how on the bottom it says, damn man, Rugo has a really bad case of SNK boss syndrome as like an example of it being used in a sentence.
I assume this is like Urban Dictionary or something.
Yeah.
To describe when a boss fight takes a massive leap in difficulty to the point of feeling broken, and this is maybe the earliest example of it. When you finally do win the match, Rugal pulls a con and decides to blow his ship up to try and take you with him.
Of
Luckily,
course.
your team escapes, and again, there really isn't much of any story here. Pretty much all the team endings are the same. They all
Jesus!
just decide, well, guess that's over. The only real exception is that with Team Fatal Fury, you do get a nice cameo from Geese and Krauser promising their revenge. And with Team Ikari Warriors, Heidern tosses out a picture of his family as if to say they finally avenged them. And that's it. That is how this franchise started. But when SNK saw the reception of this game, they realized it couldn't be where the series ended. This was
They
a
did
smash
have a gold
hit.
mine.
A month
Yeah.
after the game came out, Gamist magazine claimed it was the second most popular arcade game in Japan. And later that year, Electronic Gaming Monthly
wonder why.
named it the best fighting game of 1994, meaning it beat out Killer Instinct, Children of the Atom, Virtua Fighter 2, and Tekken. And so
Really?
SNK decided to bring it back next year. And
Yeah.
as you will
Hell
soon
yeah.
see, the game didn't add much, but what it did add would change the course of the series forever.
And that,
Well, I'm excited to find out.
next time on the Legit Waves channel. Hey, got him. But yeah, that seems like a good part to end our part 1 at least.
Yeah, part 1 of part 1.
Hell yeah. Oh man, this is going to be a fun journey. Like, this is only the first game, and we're already learning so much about the history of these characters and how they came to be.
100%.
Oh. And I'm sorry, guys. Omega Rugal's kind of cool. It's just that not knowing anything about him in the art style of 15, it really is not helping him. He does look cool here, though.
I can think that he is awesome and I can like him, but I still stand by my statements.
Hey, he's so confident in his outfit. Like, he doesn't really care what you think about him, okay?
Exactly.
You think it looks
Who
cool.
cares if he's got a good fashion sense? He is his own man and he wears it confidently.
Hell yeah. But yeah, dudes. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we hope to see you in the next one. Later, dudes.
Bye-bye.